Hey everybody, it's Zach Clayton, Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care, and the PAC channels. And I am also a proud member of Footprints Forward. Joining me, as always, are lady I love and respect, Mrs. Goddess of the Grapes, Stephanie Simoes. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Doing well, Zach. Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. We've also got Mr. Dennis Schrader. Dennis, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's a great Monday morning. Good to be here.
Sure is. It's a Monday morning, so it's kind of weird trying to get started, but it's the beginning of a new week, and hopefully we can help a lot of people. And we're finishing off our trifecta of squares here. I guess it's not really a trifecta if you got four, but Mr. Z from Z World Webs, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay. Glad to be a part of this fourfecta, and I'm doing great. How about yourself, everybody? And Zach?
We're doing fantastic. Stephanie, if you don't mind, take a moment and talk about what you do.
Sure. Hi, my name is Stephanie Simoes. I work with nonprofit organizations and people year-round to assist with fundraising through One Hope Wine. We are a cause-centered winery out of Napa Valley with over $9.7 million donated to date. So what I do is I specialize in fundraising, gifting, private wine events, and wine delivery. And when you pour a glass of wine, it's a great feeling to know that that bottle made an impact for a nonprofit that's important to you. I'm also the co-founder of P&S Properties. We are a small family-run business that's working to curb the homelessness crisis in our veteran communities. We work with HUD-VASH recipients on housing and are working to build veteran communities and housing while providing support and resources. So this mission and being here is important to me because in the last few years in working in the nonprofit space, I've learned a lot about where our systems are really lacking in support.
Yes.
And I do believe that education and resources for those needing assistance is really important to help bring those number of losses in the other direction. So thank you, Zach.
No problem, Stephanie. Mr. Z, you are up.
Wow, I thought I would go last. I'm humbled. Hello, world, and thank you, Zach, for running this meeting and everyone for being here. Hello, world. My name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer, and I am also a consultant that specializes in helping nonprofits, veteran business owners, and entrepreneurs who are looking to announce upcoming events, book online appointments, and of course, receive and sell products and receive donations and sell products without the use of eBay or Jeff Bezos. I also provide a free consultation to those who are looking to get started on their brand new website and to those that have an existing website, but they're not comfortable with the idea of looking into the back end or the code, whether it's WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, or other website companies I don't want to say. And of course, with that being said, if you are looking to modify, develop, or redevelop a custom website that is specifically catered to your needs without using a cookie cutter template, well, let's develop a website Z World is waiting for. Back to you, Mr. Zach, my brother from another mother.
And one of the greatest things about Z in my mind is he is part of the Community Pay It Forward family. So I created the Community Pay It Forward family in ways to make all of your shopping matter. You can support wonderful programs like Stephanie's program will be, like Dennis's program will be, simply by shopping with people. You shop with Mr. Z, you hire him to do your website, and 80% of whatever Mr. Z decides to give us as a referral goes to wonderful programs like Mr. Schrader's. Mr. Schrader, why don't you go on ahead and take it from there and tell us about your program?
Sure. Thank you, Zach. My name is Dennis Schroeder. I am a retired Army officer. I currently, for the last 4 years, started and run a nonprofit organization called the Price of Freedom Foundation, where we are dedicated to telling the complete life stories of those who died while serving in our nation's military, and that's from any cause. And we also offer an opportunity for veterans to pay tribute to their fallen comrades. So whether we're telling a complete story or simply having a veteran come on and tell his portion of the story of one of our fallen heroes, especially this month. Next week, of course, is Memorial Day. We believe that Memorial Day should be every day, and that we should know more about our fallen than simply the short bios that most of us get to see.
Boy, I completely agree with you there, and I'm pretty sure that that's all the way down the line. Hey, before we bring on our Dennis, before you introduce your wonderful friend, we need to talk about what we were able to watch last week, which was the Teen Society or Teen Suicide Prevention Society. What did you guys think about this? Because I know that it was amazing for me to get to talk to her, and I know that the show ran a little bit long, so we couldn't all sit down. But do you guys have any thoughts on what we watched?
I loved it. I thought that the 4-question process that she had was phenomenal. I just need to get a copy of it myself. I know that she gave the website. It's still on my to-do list, but I think it's a fabulous way to be able to talk with somebody about it and to elicit whether somebody is thinking about it. Because I know for a fact when that was going on in my life that nobody had a clue, and you wouldn't have known if you hadn't asked questions.
Yeah, you know what, Dennis? Here's the funny thing. Right there's my workbook. I just got it printed out, pretty much right before we came on the air. And you're right. And I think, I think one of the coolest things about it is you're right. 4 questions, 3 of them are yes and no. So, Z, did you have?
I just think what she's doing to prevent teen suicide is commendable, because it's not easy being a teenager these days. I know there's the constant need of attention and validation on social media, and there is a thing called cyberbullying. I mean, it was easier before the social media days. It was just in person, then you never have to see that person again. But there are cyberbullies out there that like to target kids just because they act a certain way, they look a certain way, and it's very common in the let's just say in the video game world. You got these 12-year-old kids who are trying to spend time with their parents or their family, and then you got these people saying, "Oh, you're terrible with this game. If you try to attack me this way, I'm going to find your family." And it's very traumatizing. So I think it's what she's doing to prevent teen suicide. It's truly commendable.
Yeah,
that was my long-winded answer of that.
No, it's a needed answer, because I think that you brought up a lot of things that we haven't ever talked about. And we have this to where, look, right now there's all these campaigns and lawsuits against Facebook and Instagram about teenagers who are taking their lives because they're not living up to the quote unquote, sorry, trying to get my fingers in here, quote unquote standards of today's teen. And so yeah, being a teen is so much more difficult. They're expecting to grow up a lot faster, I think, than we ever thought that we had to. We were told that, take your time, grow up a little bit. Nowadays, I think they're being kind of, in a lot of cases, they're being flung into situations they're just simply not ready for. So, Stephanie, what were your thoughts?
Really, really impactful interview. I love that you volunteered, Zach, to work through the questions with her. That was really awesome. And with the number 4, how she spoke of that energy shift when you answer the reasons why you want to stay, right?
Mhm.
And I thought that that was like, a critical moment and something to really look at when working through the questions with someone. So, love what she's doing. This was a great one.
Yeah, it seemed, and I'll be completely honest here. I didn't know I was going to take to heart as much as I did the 4 questions, because it's simply that it's 4 questions. Well, how can this change my life as much as it did? What do you mean 3 of the questions are yes or no? Well, there's no way this can. Holy crap! This made me think about it. So, but yeah, it was amazing. So please make sure, and Z, sorry to do this to you, but I got to cut off your face here. But please make sure you check off teensuicidepreventionsociety.com. Once again, it's kind of a long name, but teensuicidepreventionsociety.com. You go right here and you get the guide right there. All you got to do is click on that little button, and you get an email. You download the guide. You can print it out. Parents, print this out. I'm going to say it again. Parents, print this out. Make sure you have it. Make sure it's a resource that you have, because her story, talking about her daughter, and it started after a shopping trip. You don't know what's going to trigger something like this. So let's make sure that we're prepared for it all. Well, Dennis, sir, I'm going to leave up this introduction to you because this man's going to mention you. So
Yes.
let's leave the introduction up to you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. I want everybody listening here to meet my very good friend, Patrick Myers. He is an awesome person. He is a veteran. He is an evangelist, and he knows firsthand about the subject that we are talking about, which is suicide, and both in his own life and in people around him. And I guarantee you will not forget this conversation. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us here on this show today.
Thank you guys for having me. It's such a blessing. Such a blessing.
Hey, no problem. We greatly appreciate it, because your story is going to be able to help somebody cross a bridge and help somebody in their journey. Hey, Patrick, you were able to tell us a little bit about your journey before we came on. Can you go on ahead and tell our audience and help them understand, how did you start this? Why did you start this?
So April 26, 2021, I was going through one of the darkest times of my life, and I took my life. I took my car and I ran into a tree and I died. Um, Before this happened, 3 years prior, um, I was just going through just some of the darkest times of my life. At the time, I was doing 5 different ministries that were dealing with youth. I had a very toxic marriage at the time. On top of all that, and it wasn't necessarily. I don't know. It was not her fault. It was me too. We were just we didn't know how to communicate properly and stuff like that, and it caused a lot of issues and stress and different things like that. And just I'm not a man built that way to constantly be fighting, arguing, yelling, and all that kind of stuff. So that was just a really big stressor in my life. And then I'm dealing with these 5 ministries. I'm dealing with anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500, 2,000 kids total on a monthly basis, where the things that I do are affecting that many kids. And it started off really small. Like I was just a youth pastor at one point, but then I didn't have boundaries. I didn't say no. I kept taking on more and more. And um, COVID happened. When COVID happened, it's just everything hit the fan, and just everything, like every single day, anything that was something worse happened in the day before. And like during this time, my best friend shot herself. I had a couple pastor friends that ended up killing themselves. Suicide rates, teen suicide rates that I was dealing with, went through the roof in an astronomical way. Um, the stories that you're dealing with when you're dealing with teens, people do not understand sometimes like what it is that our children are going through right now in the school system, at home, just in their own personal lives, and like the terrors that are being visited upon them, how truly evil things are playing out in their lives. And so I had kids that, parents are trying to kill them. When you're dealing with inner city youth, you're dealing with a whole different gamut of problems. And so you're dealing with their PTSD and their trauma because they're watching friends get shot and get killed, and that's happening to them. And you know, um, so it was just a lot going on, that during that time of my life. And I went to this deep darkness. I was going through depression at the time. I went from 250 pounds or 230 pounds to 145 pounds in 3 months. Um, just not eating, not sleeping, none of those different types of things. I didn't know what was happening to me at all. I had no clue. And so I'm going to I was going to the VA at the time, to some therapists, and before the suicide, and I was going to these therapists and stuff like that, and um, it really, I didn't feel like it was really helping me so much because it just the life was still happening to me on a constant basis. And so, just when I would get the tool, or they'll be like, I'd get some reprieve at the thing, something worse has happened. So, like for instance, like my daughter, her eyes rolled back in the back of her head one day. She collapsed on the ground, and we spent the next 6 months trying to figure out if she was going to live or die. And that's an insane thing to go through with your kid. And and uh, and so it came to this point where, um, like literally my brain couldn't take anymore. My filter set shut off. I was having heart problems. I was blacking out, holding up traffic and stuff like that in the middle of the day. I had a friend had to come and get me because I had blacked out and I couldn't see. Um, because I was having that bad of a panic attack, and she had to come all the way across town, and get me and take me around because I was just like I didn't know what was going on. And and this is the depression that my kids were going through that I didn't understand at the time when they were talking to me about what was going on and how they felt. And I was just like, are the kids that were committing suicide, like I felt some sort of way about the strength of uh, uh, their will, I guess, the strength of their will. Like, why would you do this and hurt your family and do all these different types of things? I've said all those things sometimes. And even my daughter was, at the time, she was highly suicidal and had attempted several times. And I had went through this process with her, um, which she was one of the main reasons why I stayed, in that environment, was to just keep her alive and stuff like that. And I didn't understand like what was actually really going on with her. And 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 until I hit that tree. When I hit that tree, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I had that I wasn't even a thought in my mind. It was just I had this one last argument. Everything in me that I was had holding myself together just broke, and it was just all these voices was just like, you're a failure, you're this, you're that. Just it was so loud, and it was just, you know um I was just sitting there, and I was like, I just got to get out of this neighborhood. I was driving my car, and I was like, I couldn't get the voices to stop. I was like, how do I get it to stop? And I was like, oh, a tree. And boom, I ran to this tree as fast as I could. And when I hit that tree, I died. I was in this space between life and death. Um, and for me, what had happened was I was in the presence of a holy God. There wasn't no light, there wasn't no darkness. It was just a space, and it was His presence, and His presence that was just um, like we don't understand the holiness of God sometimes. Like we talk about God, we talk about, we like, yeah, He's real. I believe in Him. We don't understand how real and infinite and final that He is. Um, and the first thing was the man that I was exposed in front of that holiness. So like I'm doing all these ministries, thinking I'm doing all these things for God, and I'm talking to kids and um, all that stuff, and I was in the realization that none of these things that I was really truly doing was for God, and I knew at that moment that um, I'd probably go into hell. The truth of things is that I was probably going to hell, and it scared me to death. Then the next thing I knew was just this all-consuming love that consumed every fiber of my being, and whatever it is that we're made out of, which is infinitely more than what we can ever imagine. Um, was just being consumed by His love, and I thought I was going to die all over again in that place from that love. And then the next thing I knew, I was looking at that tree, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm hurt." My femur had went through the back of my hip, crushed my hip. My foot was crushed into a ball. Had I been 2 inches more to the left, I would have died. Um, um, like died. Like I would have been nothing that they could have done for me. And but that first breath that I took, it talks about in His Word where He thinks about us as many grains of sand that there is on the planet. He thinks good thoughts about each and every single one of us. And um, that breath, that second, He does this every second. And so when you think about that, that is trillions times trillions times trillions of times where the very thoughts that God has of you, each of us individually, is literally the thing that keeps that heart pumping, that keeps our breath going, that keeps us existing. And the realization of that just completely was dumbfounding to me. And it was real on another level of the grace that's given and afforded to me to just breathe. And I spent 2 weeks in the ICU and being mended and put it back together. And and then another 8 months where I was just on my back and I was recovering from this because when you experience something like that, it fundamentally changes everything because not many people get to meet um, their mortality like head on in that kind of way. And so I spent the next 8 months just dealing with the man that I was because that when I was exposed in that way, I had to really confront those things as a man. And to be really honest, all those things that was hidden and that was in the darkness and all those things were really the source of my depression and things that was going on because I was completely against my inner being was completely against what it is that God was creating me to be. And it was just, when I started dealing with those and giving them to God and being like, I am a liar. I have lied. I am not the best father. I got angry and did different things, or I wasn't the best husband. When I started actually coming to grips and terms with those things and really being like, God, hey, I know I'm not this person. Can you make me this person? Can you forgive me? Can I put this in your hands? Like I went through an 8 month journey of that and still highly suicidal at the time. And dealing with the loss of everything. I went from ministries five ministries, a nice house, a car, family. I even lost my dog in this whole thing. Like it was the worst country song ever. And it just really was. I came up here with the clothes on my back and Xbox controller and a backpack. That's what I came up here to. I was in Jackson, Florida at the time. I came up here to Tennessee. That's all I had, and so I'm stripped down to nothing. And there's this one point where I was asking God for healing, and he was just like, "You need to tell your story." And I was just like, "Nah, God, there's just no, I don't, nope. You know what I mean? I don't need nobody to know my story. You know, that whole thing about telling God what you're gonna do or not do." And so I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Everybody's telling me I need to tell my story and write it and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't have anything to say to anybody. I don't have I don't have any value in my story and stuff like that. Um and so I didn't do it at that time. Um I still spent some time where God was just informing me about who I am in Him. I was learning how to walk again. I learned how to walk on the greenway that's behind my house. And in every step of the way, I would pretend like I was holding his hand, and me and my daddy God we'd be walking his path, and he'd be like, "Look, son, I made all these things for you." And I would see, I'm a city boy, so I'm seeing deer frolicking in the woods and whatnot, and I can see trees, and I'm walking like it's the mountains out here to me. So I'm, I'm out here, and I'm like in the mountains, and there's like a creek and a river and all this kind of stuff. I've never experienced this stuff before, and I'm just walking with God through this, and he'd be like, remember that verse about sitting beside the still waters, how I restore your soul? And there's literally a creek sitting right there, and he'd be like, man, son, have a seat. And I'd sit there for like an hour, just having peace and hearing that water and understanding like a little bit more of God's heart for me. And so all these things are happening and forming me, and then and then I started talking to people. I told my first person my story. It was a maintenance man that was here in my complex, and I told him my story about what was going on in what happened to me in my life. And he was like really one of the first people I told, and outside of my men's group that I had started attending actually at the time. And when I talked to him, he was like, "Man, I'm going through this stuff too, man. I'm having trouble with my wife and these different things. Not trouble with his wife, but he's just going through different things that was going on in his home, and he was just feeling that pressure. And was just like, I've been thinking about it. He was actually a veteran himself, and it it sparked something. And then this thing I know, I started telling pretty much everybody I came in contact with what had happened to me. And then I was being invited to talk to men's groups and different things like that. Uh, and the next thing I know, it just took me in this whole other direction, telling my story, and then and the impact that it was having. Like I couldn't understand like how almost 90% of the people that I was talking to were struggling with suicide, and my youth that I'm talking to, the youth especially, man, the need out there for these youth is astronomical. Our men, especially our men, in this day and time where manhood and all that kind of stuff is under an extreme attack, and um, just these men out here are just suffering on a level. And then like even like the women, there's several women friends that I've talked to and met, where it's just like 90% of the people that you talk to are dealing with this or have dealt with this or are struggling with it real time right now. That's a high number to not be doing anything about. And so I ended starting. Actually, it's only been about a month now. My friend Dennis, I was transitioning from another thing that I was doing, and I was like, man, I don't know what direction I need to go into. And he was sitting across the booth from me, and he was like, well, have you ever thought about podcasting? And I was like, well, you don't know. He's like, man, you have a story that you could tell, man, and you'd be so great at doing this. And I was like, you know what? I never told anybody this, but like a year ago, when I was going through all that time, the Lord had put that on my heart to start podcasting. I already have like a men's group that I'm doing and several different men groups that I'm touching around in this area and different ministries that I'm doing. And I was like, oh man, you know what? I was like, why not? Let's just pray about it, and we'll just see what happens. And if God wants me to do it, then He'll open up the door. And then, man, we prayed about it, and I didn't understand the ride that I was going to go on. Like it was just like the doors that opened up were stupid. Like meeting some of the best podcasters in the world, like day after day, we're like, I can't believe this is happening. It was so crazy the ride that we've been on. Uh, like even being on this show, it's just it doesn't even make sense because like I woke up this I woke up this morning. It was like he's like, hey, we're doing a podcast today, and we're going to be on the show. You're going to tell your story and be a part of this thing. I was like, oh, cool, So it's God is just so good when He restores you. And so what I do right now, I founded a company. I'm founding a company right now called Akal Esh Global. What that means is consuming fire in Hebrew, and which is what happened to me. Like God hit me with that consuming fire in that space between life and death. And when you're hit like that, it changes everything. And one of the companies the media company that was coming out of that is the Pit podcast. And what we're doing with the Pit podcast is it's a group of men that comes on, and we talk about the issues of manhood because a lot of depression, anxiety, all of these things. It talks about in the Bible. It says in Isaiah 26:3 and 4, it says, "A man whose mind is stayed on me will have perfect peace because he trusts me, for I'm his everlasting rock." And the implications of that verse when it talks about the mind, I never knew the Bible talked about. I never knew the Bible talked about mental health. And when you break that word down in the Bible about mental health, or about what the word mind means in Hebrew, it opens up to this huge implication of like the way your mind sees things, how you form from the traumas that you have been through, all these different types of things, and that was like a very healing factor for me. I'd been going so about 9 months after I was going to therapy and all that kind of stuff to deal with that whole issue of suicide, the trauma that I've been through. And I'm not against going to therapy, but therapy was just, it was opening up wounds, and I couldn't get those soul wounds actually healed. And um, and they had great advice, but I needed something deeper. And when I started getting into my work, it said his mind is stayed on him. The only way you can keep your mind on him is to actually start going to your word, reading your Bible, praying, like connecting with your source, because he's the source of your life, the very breath that you have. And we're I'm gonna just say it bluntly. I don't have any other way to say it. I think we are very arrogant as humans, um, to think that we can't control our heartbeat, we can't control our next breath, and then we are so arrogant to believe that that means our life is our own. Like there's nothing that is providing that source. That's an arrogance on another level. And um when we start to connect back to him and he starts informing you of who you are, and we humble ourselves and be like, God, I can't breathe without you, because that's the truth. I can't make it to the, like, his thoughts is what keeps your heart beating, because you cannot do it. Not one person in this chat or on that's listening to this, or at no point can they go, I'm gonna keep my heart beating, stopping beating for 30 seconds. They can't do it. And even if you try to hold your breath, you still gonna have to take a breath unless you put a bag over your head or something. You got to do something. And so like you're not even in control of that. And that's the truth of who God is, because his thoughts, no matter how you think about him, are what keeps you alive. And so when you start connecting back to that and you humble yourself before him, and you're just like, You're understanding that the only thing he has ever asked any of us to be is his son. That right there by itself was a game changer in my life as far as healing, like truly healing. Because, like, as his son, he doesn't say that I'm a failure. He says I'm more than a conqueror. As his son, he says that I am loved and cherished before I was even in my mother's womb, is what he says. Um, he says there's no condemnation in him. Like, he never looks at me and goes, "You messed up." He always looks at me and goes, "Get up, son. Let's try this again. Let me help you this time." That's his heart for me. And that right there is what started to truly heal me and get me to that next step. And I mean, and then not just that, I had brothers that were around me. I had my men's group at Revolution Church. Particularly, I'm going to shout them out. It's these guys, Matt, uh, Matt, Jeremy, and Eric, my pastor. Logan also. These were um, major guys in my life that, like, would tell me who I am and would step into the lane and come and get me when I was going through depression, come and get me out of bed and be like, "Hey, we're going to lunch. You're not sitting in this room." Or, the time that I almost took my life again because I crashed, and I had a buddy come and sit with me in the middle of the night and sing and worship with me. I had men like that and people like that. And that is what the Pit Podcast is for. It is to gather these men together. Number one, connect us back to our source, and also create a group for you where um, and a community behind you where these guys actually show up for each other. We teach that. Um, we teach brotherhood where it is like, I am my brother's keeper. That is very, very important. Um, we always think that it's someone else's responsibility, and it's not. When I was drowning and nobody was helping, like, there wasn't that thing for me, or people didn't understand what I was going through. All I needed was somebody to actually see me, not tell me how messed up I was, not tell me that I was failing and all that kind of stuff, but someone just to go, "Pat, I'm gonna be here in this mud with you," and just be there and pick me up. I'm going and tell me who I was in that time. That's what I needed, and that's what the Pit Podcast is for. Also, there's other ministries. Right now, I'm doing this thing called the Youth and Revolution Youth Initiative, and this is something particular to my church. And it's another thing too, because I started going to Sonic here up the street here in White House. And I went there about a month and a half ago, I want to say. And I just started, I didn't want to actually talk to the teens there because they had their trucks and they were revving them up all loud, hitting my car with their doors. And I was just like, teenagers, ah. and, and I was just like, and I went and threw my stuff in the trash, got my car through the trash, and I saw all these teenagers at Sonic. And I was sitting there and I was just like, I got in my car and I was burdened for him, and I was just like, I was like, I want to go talk to my girl. My phone had died. I didn't get a chance to finish talking to her. And I got in the car, and the Holy Spirit was like, go back and talk to those kids. I was like, nah, I don't want to do that right now. And I got in my car, and I was going halfway down the street. I get down the street, and it was like something was like, turn around now, and it scared me to death. And I turned my wheel before I knew what I was doing. I almost hit a car. Go back, and I go back to the Sonic, and I see this kid, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I know you guys just saw me here earlier, but I'm supposed to come and talk to you. And I start talking to this kid, and next thing you know, there's like 6, 7 kids gathered around, and they're hearing the gospel message. And there's a kid there that was suicidal at the time, and he was just, and there was 2 teenagers that were just dealing with things emotionally, and 2 teenagers that was suicidal. One was talking about he was just struggling with it that night. And then I kept going back, and these kids are like, nobody's ever told us about this. And then that broke my heart. And I was just like, man, like really think about the last time someone has told you about Christ, like in your life. And I'm 42 years old. Maybe two people in my entire life has ever told me about Christ, which actually is the thing that changes your identity, which gives you the truth of who you are. And you know, um, and so I started talking to these kids, and they're like, "We need a place to go. We don't want to just be up here at Sonic, because they're up there at Sonic. They're getting in trouble. They're doing all these different things, and it's just there's nothing for them to do here." And so um, that's what I started that actually last night. Last night was my first night, and it's the Revolution Youth Initiative. And what we are doing there is we are I we are it is not a youth group where you just come and you're going to just learn about, you're going to sit there and eat cookies and sing kumbaya. We're not doing any of that. What we are doing is this is for youth to take initiative in their life, for us to teach them to take initiative in their lives and to pour back into their communities. Because 16 to 20 year olds can have an impact right now. That is something that I seen happen when I was in Jacksonville. I did this thing called the Missing Voices Project. And what it did, it taught kids on the margin how to do ministry outside of the church. And when you gave these kids these tools, the kind of programs and things that they came up with on their own was beyond anything I could ever think of, because they knew the issues and the climate of where they were. And you gave them the tools, man. Oh, man, it was just, you know, you had kids build an Oculus room. You had um, kids do a um, a ministry that was reaching the pregnant and expecting fathers and mothers for the teens that were in their area. You had kids that were reaching the LGBTQ community. It was pretty insane how big these programs were and what they came up with. And so the intention is to do the same thing here, because once your kid knows who they are, because that's the biggest thing that's happening right now in our schools. Identity is coming under attack. That's just the truth of it. We want to some people want to sugarcoat it, some people want to deny it, but the truth is the more that our kids are confused about who they are, the more the harder it is for them to actually succeed in the calling and true purpose of their lives. And so you have to go in and have somebody. The world is coming after them hard. Like, what I think it's almost 13 hours a day the world has access to your kids. And actually, it's actually more than that now. But it's about 13 hours a day on average. The world has access to your kids, telling them what the world thinks that it should be. And it's not their parents. It's not their churches. It's not. It's not the men. It's the schools. It's everything else. It's other thing. And I'm talking to these kids at Sonic. They don't want that. They're hungry and craving for somebody to tell them how they can know who they are, how they can figure it out, how they can walk in that in their own purposes. And so that's what we do with the Revolution Teen Initiative. Also, another thing I'm doing now, I'm working with this lady named Joanna Daniels. It's called Safeguard Our Schools, and she's in Sumner County, and we're getting ready to do 5 youth rallies. The first one's going to be in White House on June 9th. And these youth rallies, it's the same thing. We're going to be informing the kids about who Christ is and what their identity in Christ can be. And also that they can stand up against the things that they're being taught and stuff like that. And being told that where they know it's not true, but they don't have a way to actually voice, because they're being shamed, they're being singled out if they have any other opinion of what the agenda is. And so it is to tell them, hey, you actually have a voice, and you have to come together with that voice so you can have power in that voice. And so that is one of the things that we're doing, and it's going to be one in White House, one in Harrisonville. Um, um, I can't remember the rest of the cities because I'm new here.
Portland, we're ending up in Gallatin, and then there's one other city that's pretty hard hit with lots of drug abuse and because of poor economics in our county in that area.
Yes, thank you for that, Dennis. I was like drawing a blank. And then there's this other thing called Sumner Prevention Coalition. And these ladies that do this, they're absolutely amazing. They're somebody that I believe you should have on your show. How they connect, it's a prevention on drugs, suicide. I actually hosted a suicide prevention one at my church where they did, and which is very, very dear to me. And they are ones that stand in the gap, and they have panels and forums where you come to it. I think it's quarterly that they do it, and you can come to it, and there'll be a panel of people that are actually discussing the topics on how or why the issues are affecting our place and how you can come and combat it and come alongside and partner and help them overcome those things that they're doing, different organizations and stuff like that. It is by far one of the coolest things that I've seen. It was something that I was hoping I was trying to start in Jacksonville, and they're already doing it here, and they're doing it at a very high level, which I was just really, really impressed with. Like, they gave me a booklet with close to 300 different resources here in Sumner County that nobody even knows exists. And they're for veterans, they're for single parents. I mean, anything you can think of. If you're homeless, if you need food, if whatever you can think of, there's a program out there that can help you. And that's what Sumner Prevention Coalition does. They bring all those things together and get that information out to the public. And so that's what I do. That's a lot.
Yes, it is.
I was like, what? So what do you do with all of the free time you have?
Disc golf, man.
Never mind. Yeah.
Disc golf, man.
Yeah, Patrick, one of the things, and Dennis warned us about this. Dennis warned me personally about this. I can't remember if it was co-host is here again. But Dennis was warning me about this. You used the words, you took your own life. You're
Yes.
obviously still sitting here. Can you explain this?
I did. I when I ran into that tree, I didn't have the thought I'm gonna kill myself, but the thing is that I did, because I know I died at that tree. Like, whoever Patrick was before he hit that tree, that man's gone, absolutely gone. But see, the Lord replaced me, because that tree was the best thing that ever happened to me. I my decisions, my choices, things that were out of my control, all those different things. When I hit that tree, I had given up because I had lost my faith in God. I was actually so angry with God when I hit that tree, because I was just like, Lord, there's no way all this can happen to one person. You be real. This is not possible. And I did a couple of FUs and this and that and just you God. and and he goes, okay. Okay, this is
I'll
that's
learn
how you
ya.
want to be.
I'll learn
like,
you
okay.
a good one.
And he was like, all right, see how you do without me. In that moment, I lost all hope. That was when I lost all hope. And then that tree hit. And then that encounter with him where it was just like, yeah, you believe me now? Do you believe who I am, how I am? And that was the game changer. Absolutely. Because the thing is, I took my life, but it wasn't mine to really take. It was always his to give. And when that first breath happened, like, I know a lot of people probably think that I'm a very radical person, but I cannot ever see life the same. I can never see people the same. I can never see, like, that I was 40 years old when I hit that tree. My life up until that 40, honestly, was just a vapor. It was literally like a breath, and I was in eternity. I was in the thralls of eternity. I was looking at it. And then for whatever reason, God said He's not done with me yet, and gave me breath again, and He gave me His life back. And now I'm looking at the rest of my life, knowing it's still going to be just another breath, but I want to lay as many crowns at His feet as humanly possible, because I'm not going back to that spot in my life where He's going to be like, well done, thou good and faithful servant, you ran your race. Like there's no other option for me in that regard, because I know the truth of that's the truth. I also understand that there's this wide and narrow path, and we play around with this wide and narrow path because we've been really misinformed on how narrow the path actually is. And there is just not this halfway thing with God. And we think that there is. We think that there's a stage where we can be okay. It's either you are connected to Him or you are not. And there's grace in between for you to be figuring these things out. But it's like, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. Either He said he will know us by our fruit. The world will know us by our fruit. And if there's no fruit, if there's no following, and I know sometimes you might turn away, but if you hear that voice and you're not turning back and you're constantly turning away, there's a serious issue that you need to think about, because you don't want to miss that gate. You don't want to miss that thing wide open because you're okay. You want to.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing. The reason why I am the way I am also is because I truly understand His love. How do you? Here's the best example I can give you. Okay, if you say for instance, you're playing with your kid and all that kind of stuff, or you're just playing, you have this ball in your driveway, the ball rolls out to the street, you go out into the street to pick up the ball, a Mack truck comes over and smacks you, it runs you slap over, right? This thing's going like 60 miles an hour, but you come into me the next daggum day and you're like, man, you wouldn't believe what happened to me, man. I got hit by this truck. And then you ain't got no scars. You don't have an eye on the left side of your head somewhere. I mean, you don't got a broken bone. Like, what would you say to me? You would say that I was a straight up liar if I came in there and told you some story like that. You ain't changed nothing. There's no way that happened to you. But I was hit by that Mack truck of the cross at that tree, and my arm is over here, my leg's over here, and when I tell you that story, this is the facts. And that's the way we have to be when we come in contact with Christ. It's not a two-way street. It's not a maybe or a might. It is all He wants is your heart. He wants you to understand that you are His kid. He created you. That's it. That's all He wants. And so that whole thing about taking my life, I know it's a long answer, but that taking my life was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was delivered out of a situation where I was being used, and I was not valued, um, and just my decisions and different things I had just become overwhelming, and He just delivered me completely out of that situation, plucked me out, put me into a new place, gave me a new name, gave me and covered me with a new coat. And man, just you can't take what's not yours.
One of the reasons why I asked that, Patrick, is every year, August 14th, I go out at 11 p.m. and I stand where somebody ran me off the road. I don't say, that my life was taken, but I do say I was reborn at that moment. So I do understand. I'm like to take real quick, and we're unfortunately coming to the end of the show, but Stephanie, Z, Dennis, do you guys have any questions?
I'm going to let the others go first because I get to talk with this fantastic guy all the time.
I'll jump in really quick. You should totally write about your story. I will say that. I'll jump on that bandwagon because it is impactful. I literally have chills when you spoke about your interaction, with the tree incident. And one quote that I read recently that came to mind as you were just speaking and wrapping up is, I don't just pray when I need something, I pray regularly to express gratitude. So that's kind of something that stuck out just hearing you speak. But your restart is definitely huge life pivoting direction for you, and you being asked to speak in various places, so impactful. I love the Revolution initiative that you're working on, and it's so true. Kids today are consumed by outside sources in a much bigger way, I think, than in the past, for sure. I have 4 kids myself, with 1 on the way, so this is something that's definitely concerning. Is this initiative that you're working on just in person in your area? I was curious about that.
So right now, because this is where I'm based, and just I'm like I said, I'm still in the middle of starting my life completely over. It's at Revolution Church in this area in White House, but I do have plans to. I believe it belongs to the community personally, and that's my heart's intent. I want to reach the masses. End of story. And I know that's what God has called me to. And so, where are you at by chance, Stephanie?
I'm currently in Northeast Pennsylvania, but I was just curious if there were plans to kind of take it out of the immediate area, or virtually, or online,
Yes.
or something, some kind of connection.
Every way that I can reach somebody with the gospel of Christ, I'm going to find it, and I'm going to try to do it.
Well, I know there's the one guy who runs this thing called the Pack Channels that would be interested in you going on ahead and joining them and using that format to maybe spread your word if you're interested in doing that. I'll introduce you to him. He's me, so we're going to be talking tomorrow anyway. So
I am very interested.
Yeah. So, Z, did you have any questions before we get to our?
The only thing I have is comments. Patrick, thank you for sharing your breathtaking story, and a great way of putting that Patrick was reborn, because the old one, who would have known what he could have been if we didn't meet the new Patrick? You mentioned that you are a city boy. So what are your thoughts on the great outdoors with deers and waterfalls and creeks? Like, do you find it more relaxing to be in the great outdoors than seeing unicorns and deers and whatnot?
Man, I'm never going back, man. I'm thinking about getting me a pair of boots, man. So, no, actually, this is. So I'm just gonna be blunt about this too, man. So when I moved up here, I was like, I moved to Cottontown. So I'm black, moving to Cottontown. I was like, oh my God, this is the no.
I got a little buddy, Patrick. I got a little buddy that I was over the road with, and I invited him to come camping with my family and myself. And he looked at me, he goes, "Man, you ain't seen no black man in the woods on his own."
No.
That's how horror stories start.
Yeah, man. I've been living that life apparently, man. That's another story for another day, man, where yes. I actually got attacked in the woods. And someone tried to take my life in the woods out here in White House. And then how God turned that whole thing around.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I love it here, man. This is the most, I've never met better people. To be honest, of all the places I've lived, I've never been treated better as a person. You have your experiences being a minority in these kind of communities and stuff like that, but I don't care about those. So that's just ignorance in people, and that doesn't from the overall experience, man. It's just been a blessing, man, and just rest. And man, I love it here, man. Just to slow down. Like, you can't go any faster than 30 miles an hour anywhere. So like, you get a lot of time to think and just, reflect on things, reflect on how you're just like, you're not going to yell at that person in front of you. That's, we're not going 40 in a 30. So
I do have one question I'd like you to address, because I'm afraid some people may have got the wrong, or may get the wrong idea. When you said that your running into that tree and taking your life was the best thing that happened to you, I'm a little concerned that somebody who may be saying, "Oh gosh, maybe this will be the thing that's going to change my life around too." And I'm really hoping that that's not the message that we want people to get.
No, the message is don't run into a tree. The message is connect to your source before that happens.
Amen.
Um,
I
that's
like that, Patrick, because I tell people all the time, you know what, if you want to get into business, do it. It's one of the greatest things that you can do. You know, follow your heart, get into business. Just don't do it the way I did it, because I ran into a fence at 25 miles an hour and that shit hurt. So don't do it that way. You know, so yeah, you know, find your own path. You know,
Yeah.
there's definitely other ways to do it. But yeah, we always close this out, and I'm sorry, Patrick, but we're up on the top of the hour. But Stephanie, from this conversation, what is it that you're going to take away?
I think it's pretty clear, Patrick, you're meant to be here to share this, and I truly believe your story is going to impact and help so many people. So I can't wait to follow your journey with reaching the masses.
Thank you.
Dennis?
That's so cool. That's so kind. Thank you.
Well, I'm just so blessed. I get to fellowship with Patrick, and definitely call him one of my very best friends, because he is. And I'm just happy that we are able to share a little piece of who he is on this show and this program, so that others can get to know him, and you know, get to know your maker. That's what I would say. Get to know your maker and have a real relationship with God.
That's great. Mr. Z.
All I can say is, again, breathtaking, and the story that you provided was very courageous, and if I do say so, very brave of you to talk about your story from the old Patrick to the new Patrick. And you said something that resonated with me about choosing one's life. And Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, once said that one of the ways you can find the meaning of life is to give life meaning. And I think it's great at what you're doing to provide those with that sense of hope without having to find it elsewhere. It's from within. Tree or no tree, you're definitely making this a better place for all of us. Well done, Patrick.
That's a great quote, Z, going along with this. And Patrick, I want to one of the things that you know all of my podcasts are all about. You explained, you know what? I wasn't quite sure if my story was going to help anyone. What's my story going to do? Well, now you've realized what your story can do. And so that's what I really took out of this, is that, you know what, you are one who realized, I do have a story. I've got a very important story, and my story is going to help other people bring their stories out. And I appreciate that. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. I also, again, you know, I fully understand the rebirth of yourself. But I want to thank you so much on behalf of our little group here. And I also want to welcome you back anytime that you have anything to announce. If you have anything that you need to, any concerns for something that goes on, because this is a group that Patrick, our whole, you know, we just want to make sure that people are heard. We want to make sure that people are there and people understand, look, there are options. And I know for myself, for Stephanie, for Dennis, for Z, I really want to thank you for coming on and joining us.
Well, Zach, you're a man after my own heart, man, because that's my heart too, man. Is I know the power of connection, and man, brother, that you're out here doing this, and all of you for the things that you said, man. Zach, thank you, Mr. Z, I think it is Zach. I think it was. No, you're Zach. You're Mr. Z. Thank you, thank you for just and Stephanie and Dennis, man. Thank you. Such an honor to. I love what you guys are doing, man. Like this is like It's one of the things I would love to do for people too, man. So I really, really am blessed, man. This is awesome, man. I had a
Well,
great time.
well, brother, you're always welcome back here. So, hey, everybody, you can see the QR code in the corner. If you have a story to tell, like Patrick was able to come to us and tell his story, if you're somebody who works with an organization or works with a group that can help somebody change their life from suicide to success, we want to talk to you. Footprints Forward was founded by this group of people who just wants to make sure that you understand, no matter how softly you walk, you're going to leave footprints. So let's talk about it. Patrick, again,
Nice.
thank you. First, my name is Zach Clayton, founder of Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care. For Stephanie Simoes, for Dennis Schroeder. Sorry about that, Dennis.
It's all right.
And for Mr. Z of Z World Webs. We just want you to know, somebody's going to be here. We need you here as well.